Welcome back to another episode of Ruthless TV, where I break down our kind of people, scene by scene. Now, let's get into this video. The scene opens up with Angela on her social media, and she's explaining to her followers the meaning of black hair as it was told by her mom. She went on to describe how our hair patterns identified your tribe, your social status, and your wealth. She then went on to describe how our hair was then cut off so that they could not identify who we were, and how growing our hair back is how we started to communicate with one another. Listen, there are so many jaw-dropping moments in this episode. Just like last week, this story, it moves very, very fast. Because once you get a grasp of what's going on, they hit you with something else. So it's very, very interesting. In this next scene, we see Pastor John Gray, and he's delivering the message of Moses leading the children out of Israel. And I guess Aunt Peg couldn't wait to open her gum after service because the crinkling of the paper made so much noise that everybody had to turn around to see what was going on. And of course, Tyreek is here. He can't miss Sunday service, so I guess everybody who was somebody was actually at church on Sunday. And the writers did let us know that it was actually 48 hours before the big ball that's going to take place a little bit later. Then you know what happens after church. Everybody's got to stand around and talk a little bit, or for a long while. It all depends on which church you go to. And Angela's talking to Tyreek, and she wants to know if he can refer her to a contractor, and he nominates himself. Then of course, as she's standing there talking to Tyreek, we see Mama Liv putting her down again, saying that she's a disgrace. And again, she's telling Leah to take care of it. Then she tells Leah that Lauren is out of control and she doesn't want her to embarrass the family. Then Angela walks over and pulls Leah away from her conversation. And she's pulling her away to let her know that they got off on the wrong foot. And then Leah is letting her know that she's familiar with her kind, the kind that come to the Bluffs for a summer fling. But she basically told her that they are the Bluffs and they are black excellence, that they don't have to come there, that they actually live there. She wanted to know why Angela wanted in so bad, and Angela said that she wants to build generational wealth for her and her daughter. So we move on to the next scene, and it's Raymond and Leah. And Leah is confessing to Raymond that her father didn't exactly step down at the company, that she actually pushed him out. And Raymond said with the bow out of Franklin that Darman can actually get back up and running. And Darman is his company that he has partnered with someone else. But this is an opportunity for him to get his company back. And now with Leah being in charge, everything should be smooth sailing. Or is it? And this is an interesting point in the storyline, because now we see what's driving Leah to actually take over the company. Then in this next scene, we have more drama unfolding. Angela told Aunt Peg and Nikki that she plugged a piece of Leah's hair from the wig that she wore at the event. Angela had the piece of hair tested for DNA, and it turns out that it's 99% likely that they both share the same father. And Aunt Peg is telling her that Leah is not going to let her anywhere near their thriving company. And look at Aunt Peg's face. She knows something. I just don't think that she's being forthright about any of this. She knows way more than what we think she does. Then Nikki is still concerned about the spreading of her grandmother's ashes, but Angela says that she's not going to spread her ashes nowhere near the Bluffs. Then in this next scene, we're introduced to old Jack here, and Jack is Raymond's losing business partner. He actually caused their company to take a great loss last year, and I think that this is how the Franklins got control of it. And their company's name is Darman, which is a combination of the last names of their great-grandfathers. And according to Jack, they're like brothers. They grew up together, they went to high school together, they did everything together. But Raymond is still bitter, and you can tell he really don't want to hear none of that. All he knows is that he's glad to have his company back, and it looks like he's keeping a close eye on Jack this time. Then in the next scene, we move on to the charity outreach preparation where they're getting some flowers together. Leah tells Angela just because it's for charity that the flowers can't look cheap. Then Lauren comes in and takes a seat, and then the two ladies who are always chirping, you know what, we're going to call them the Peanut Gallery. The Peanut Gallery, they're talking about how short her dress is, and her mom has to defend her and lets them know that her friend is still in the hospital grieving. And her mom has to have a sit down with her because Lauren is missing church. She's, hungover and just hanging out way too much. She thought that it would be a good idea if her and Lauren grab some lunch after the Forbes shoot tomorrow. Then Lauren warns her that there are going to be some things that are going to come out that she's not going to be too pleased with. Then Lauren suddenly gets sick and has to run to the bathroom. But then her mom grabs her phone and she sees the picture of her and Taylor looking like they're in love. Angela brings up the fact that they never honor smaller business women and thought that they should change the name. Then here again, Leah has to step up to take credit for everything. So she did change the name to the Diamond Ball, but of course it was Angela's original idea. Then Leah gives an assignment to one of the ladies to take flowers to her mom, but she tries to tell Leah before she left out of the room that she has to take her son to practice, but Leah didn't hear her. She just kind of walked out of the room. But Angela stepped up once again and she offered to take the flowers to her mom. And this is actually the same woman that she told to do the hair and to lead the glam team at the mother-daughter fashion show. So she's dropping the ball left and right yet again. Then Angela runs into Raymond in the hallway when she's on the way out, and she's asking him about her application. He told her that he does notice how excited she is about her business and everything, but he needs to know if she's good at minimizing risks and make solid investments with clear brand recognition. And then he just kind of brushed her off and said that he'd take a look at the application, but he couldn't promise her anything. Then in the next scene, we see her making it over to the assisted living home. She's there and she's asking to see Rose Franklin because she has a special delivery for her. Then when she gets up to the room, we see Ms. Rose Franklin, and she is a whole trip, okay? She was like, oh, the little bee came to visit. Then she said, hello, Leah. So she thinks Angela is Leah. And of course, this surprised Angela quite a bit. And little Miss Rose here gave up all the tea. All of it, okay? She told Angela, aka Leah, that she must want something because she never comes to visit her. She walked right past Angela like she's known her for years. She wanted to know if she could make her look presentable because she has a Grey City's tea at 4 p.m. And I'm sitting here asking myself, they're gonna let her go to a tea? Really? Maybe this is just going on all in her head. Then Angela asked her if she remembered the Grey City's Grand Illumination in 1984. And Rose told her yes, that she does remember it because her and Teddy were actually being inducted at the same time. She also revealed that her mom, Evelyn Vaughn, got arrested that night. She said that they were actually friends and that Evelyn worked for her for 2 summers. She said that Evelyn revealed a stereotype. I'm not really sure what that meant, but she said that she was not fit to be a mother and that she gave her baby up for $50,000. She went on to tell her that she used to be the president of the Grey Cities and that she knows every secret. She told her the lady's name. She said that her name was Deborah Ann Washington and that she bought her for $50,000 from her mom, Evelyn. She also called her mom a money-hungry, drug-dealing con. And of course, this really upset Angela. She told her that she doesn't know anything about her mom. She told Angela, aka Leah, that she's the one who actually helped her father put her in that assisted living home. Then Angela ran out and said that she had to go, and Rose was screaming to help her to get out. Of course, this scene right here was very telling. I'm not sure why, of course, she's in the assisted living home, but apparently she's suffering from some type of mental, I don't know, something, because she didn't even recognize who her daughter was. And she actually thinks that she's going to the Grey City's tea at 4 o'clock. And I'm thinking that maybe she could have had a nervous breakdown or something, you know, after she found out that Teddy had an affair and had a child from that affair. Then in the next scene, we see Angela calling around to the hospitals to see if she can get the information on the release of her and her mom. And Tyreek is there and he comes in to show her some specs and lets her know that the outside structure of the building is just fine. They kind of played around with the idea of attending dinner together, but she told him that she has a party to go to. And she said she'd pick him up by 6. Then he lets her know that she has more space in the house and that she could actually create a bigger salon. So he knocked part of the wall out, and then when she looked through the wall, she saw all of her mother's things on the other side. Then she went over there and just kind of went through everything and just, you know, reminiscing, remembering her mom. Then we move on to the next scene and we see Leah at her Forbes photo shoot. She tells Lauren that she's a little bit nervous coming from behind her father's shadow. And speaking of her father, he actually interrupted and came over to congratulate her. And in this moment, he's so excited and very happy, and he's talking about how he groomed her for it and, you know, how he does this all for the power. He told her that he remembers the story that his father told him about the power. And she said, I also remember about you cheating on my mother when I was 8 years old. She made reference to going to the apartment building in Boston and how his hands were shaking on the steering wheel as they drove off. He told her to enjoy the Forbes treatment and he basically dismissed it. Then Leah walked over to the table and saw some of Angela's products and said, this heifer is everywhere. So in this next scene, Leah just walked in this girl's house. Like, why? I don't know, whether the door was open or not, she didn't knock. She just walked right in as if they knew each other. She told her, "You've been talking to my husband about the incubator program and all up in our lives, but I don't know much about you." Then Angela spoke to Lauren and made mention of the fact that Nikki goes to see Taylor like almost every day. Then Leah's basically saying that Taylor is a bad influence and that the tragedy that she's suffering will teach her a lesson and she won't bother Lauren so much. Then they basically have the conversation briefly about her being bisexual or gay, and Leah let her know right then and there that she loved her but she couldn't support that lifestyle. Then Angela stepped in and said that these are just the pressures that they have to deal with as parents, and she called it working mother syndrome. And this was kind of a bonding moment for the both of them. And Leah actually smiled for the first time as she was talking to Angela. Can you believe it? She told Angela to do a good job with planning the event because her membership depended on it. Then Angela gets a return call from the hospital and she finds out the details of her release from the hospital. Then she goes in to tell Aunt Peggy, and she knew. She already knew. And her aunt tried to tell her that it was for only 6 months. Then Angela had to take a walk and clear her mind. But when she came back, she told her aunt that she felt like a fool because she's doing all of these things, trying to get into these societies and just protecting her honor and her name. And she said she felt really bad because both her mother and her father threw her away. But her aunt tried to explain to her that work had dried up and her father was ignoring her mom's call. So she was only trying to give Angela the lifestyle that she couldn't afford her. But like she said, after 6 months, she went back to get her and she never signed the paperwork. So I guess that made it a lot easier. And she did have the $50,000 and she was trying to pay the lady back because Aunt Peggy used it for something. So that was a whole lot of other something going on. But then she did end up apologizing to her aunt and said that she actually has to get in with the Franklins so that she can find out the truth about Teddy and what he did to her mom. Then in the next scene, we're moving on to the Black Diamond event, and Angela is a little bit nervous. She's a little bit fidgety, and Tyreek notices that she's just a little uncomfortable. But someone who's not nervous is Leah, and of course Raymond is by her side, and they're being interviewed when we hear Aunt Bam in the background. Y'all remember Aunt Bam? She's a small businesswoman and she's being honored tonight. And we can tell too because she's back there making all that noise. Forbes mentioned Angela's products in the style bio portion of their magazine, which created a buzz about her hair products. And Miss Leah here just couldn't believe it, but the night was going so fast, she didn't really pay it too much attention, but at least she took notice. Then we make it inside the ball and Raymond stops Angela to congratulate her. He's still very impressed with her and loves her confidence, and he told her that his office will call her on tomorrow. Then her and Tyreek hit the dance floor. Then Quincy comes over to talk to Nikki, and Nikki is a little nervous, and as she's talking, Lauren walks up and she claims that Nikki told her mom about her and Tay. She told Nikki that she doesn't belong there unless she's serving her a drink just like her grandmother used to do. Then Nikki told her that she has just as much right to be there as she does. And she was on the fast track to let her know who they actually were until Angela stepped in to pull her away. They had a few words and then Nikki stormed out. Then right after this, she turned around to see her dad on the stage for the first time. Well, for the second time. Teddy Franklin said that he had an announcement to make. He let everyone know that he's not retiring and that he's still the chairman of Franklin Holdings. He also said that Leah, little girl Leah, is still second in command. When they got off the stage, Teddy told her to take a closer look at the papers that she was trying to condemn him with. And somewhere in that paperwork, it condemns Teddy as well as Raymond, her husband. And this basically ties her hands. As she watches Teddy move through the room, she has a flashback, and she's reminded of the time when she was a little girl and she was running down the hallway to try and catch him. And here she sees him moving through the tables, moving through the room, sort of like the same movement that was made when she first saw him. He took a stand right over there in the corner, but she couldn't say anything. Then Tyreek came over to see exactly what was wrong with her, and she told him to leave her alone. She was very upset. She was having a panic attack, suffering through anxiety, all kinds of stuff going on with her, but she actually made it to the beach and she threw up in the water. Nikki came out to see what was going on, and she told her that she just couldn't say anything to him, and that ended the scene. Then in the next scene, we see Raymond and Leah. And Leah is making promises to get the company back for him. She said that she didn't get a chance to talk to the board. And she's going to be talking to the board about giving control of Darman back to Raymond. He told her that everything was always about her father. She was living a fairy tale and to wake up. And he just wants her to stand by him for once. And I talked about this in another video that I did because you can kind of tell that something's going on in their marriage. And I'm sure that this is probably one of the biggest things. So he walks out and Jack comes in. Jack comes in and he's making all kinds of excuses for Raymond. Then he leans in and he gives her a kiss. What in the world is going on here? This is the same guy that was on the boat talking about they were brothers and he's like family and they're so close, but you're kissing his wife, bro. So you can't be that close. I mean, that's crazy. But Lauren is standing in the door and she sees him leaning in to kiss her, and she ran out of the room, and of course Leah is running after her. She runs into Raymond, her father, and he's grabbing her saying, what's wrong? You're shaking. What's the matter? And then Leah steps in to say, oh, let's just talk about this at home, avoiding telling Raymond what's actually going on. So as they're trying to get her to calm down, the police are right behind them. They're there to arrest Lauren for attempted murder. My goodness. This is getting gooder and gooder, right? They said that Taylor is awake from her coma, and she said that she did not jump off the side of the boat, that Lauren actually pushed her off. So they're there to arrest her for attempted murder. She told the police that Taylor would never say that. Then she's going to look to Nikki to try to get confirmation from her. I'm like, okay, something's really wrong with this girl. You're going to sit up here and bash her, put her down, make her feel bad, and call her everything except the child of God, and now you want her help. But Nikki didn't fall for it. She said she didn't see anything. Then here comes Leah trying to go in on Nikki again, but Angela got right in her face and said, think again before you roll up on my baby girl. Then in this next scene, we see Tyreek in his swimming pool, and Angela stops by to apologize for telling him to leave her alone. She said that she was sorry and that she's just trying to figure it all out, and that she had a business question for Teddy. But Tyreek didn't really fall for it. He was like, are you messing with him? What kind of business? Like, what's going on? She said that her mind was on a trip and that she was questioning everything because she just found out who her father actually is. He shared the story about how his dad actually died for Teddy because he was head of security and he suffered a gunshot in the line of duty. And because of this, Teddy looked out for him. And Angela was immediately in her feelings, and she was wondering, okay, so he just automatically takes care of you, but he didn't do anything for me. And that part almost slipped out, but she caught herself. But he told her that his dad told him to just float, and that he wanted to teach her how to do the same thing, to just basically let your hair down, don't worry about it, just, flow like the water. Then he took her dress off and they got in the water and he helped her to float. Okay. And in this next scene, we see the three of the ladies standing on the bridge holding Evelyn's ashes. They're reciting the Still I Rise poem, and then they poured her ashes over the lake. Then we see Teddy and Leah. Leah enters the office and she told her dad that she made a call to the firm to make sure that they didn't have an amateur lawyer handling Lauren's case. He told her not to worry about it and that he'd handle it like he does all the time. He told her that she was absolutely right about the night in Boston that she mentioned earlier. He told her that he was there to say goodbye to a woman, and that woman, of course, was Angela's mom, Evelyn. He told her that he chose Rose and their children over the affair. And then he let her know that Angela is in fact her sister. And Leah got really upset, and she said that she's going to look like a fool once again, all because of him. So apparently Teddy does this all the time. She knocked all of his chess pieces on the floor, and he told her to reset them because he's going to have to give her a strategy for her sister because she can uncover skeletons that can ruin their family. Then in this final scene, we see Aunt Peg. She's standing over the kitchen sink and she's holding fire to a picture. And while she's letting it burn, Teddy walks in the door. Look, I'm gonna need them to get a new lock. She needs to tell Tyreek to get a lock for the door because everybody's just walking in and out of the house as if they live there. She sets her eyes on Teddy and she immediately grabbed a gun. She told him to get out, and he said, "Is that any way to treat an old friend?" End scene. I'll be breaking down the details of the scenes throughout the week, so if you don't want to miss those, subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss any of the breakdowns. Don't forget to like the video and share the video, and I'll see you in the next one.